Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL strategy show. Only a couple more of these before it all comes to an end. So let's soak it in. Yeah, tournament strategy, Sims edition. This one takes us a pretty long way in understanding how the slate's breaking down. And fortunately, thank you, DraftKings, went full main slate with the biggest contest, Millie Maker style, Saturday, Sunday, 4 games. I'll be honest, Greg, some of it's selfish. And I don't even mean selfish in that I enjoy playing these slates more. What I mean is selfish in that it's so much easier and fluid to do content when we've got like not 3 broken down slates and the biggest slate is just the main slate with all of the combined games. I'm surprised they did it, but I welcome it.
Yeah, I mean, last week we saw a big slate for Saturday, big slate for Sunday, and then a Millie Maker for Monday Night Football. There is no Monday Night Football this week. The one thing that is annoying, though, is that DraftKings and FanDuel have done it differently, where FanDuel honestly didn't really post any big contests. They posted contests for Saturday and Sunday. And then last I looked, the biggest contest for the entire weekend, it was an $80,000 prize pool. Yeah. Also, the relevance of the way that the main slate is going to be the Saturday and Sunday for DraftKings. A programming note that Live Before Lock, our big show that we usually do Sunday, moved it to Saturday so we could cover the 4-game slate.
Are we doing shows on Sunday?
Just the 2-game slate show that Bellman and EMAC are doing together.
Oh, okay, so we got a Live Before Lock for it. Yeah, it wasn't because it's still. I think that's still a pretty huge slate. I think it's still like $500K to first or something.
Yeah, just move the flagship show to Saturday.
Yeah. All right, sweet. Anyway, happy to have you guys with us. Hopefully you're having a good week. It's Friday, heading into the weekend. Weekends aren't really weekends for me anymore, though. Kind of sucks. But hopefully they are for you. We got good football. I mean, we're capping the week off with Bills, Ravens. I've been doing Ben, have you tried the divisional round best ball playoff drafts?
You told me about them. I haven't done any of them, though.
So I've been doing a lot. I think I got like 25 of them in for the main one so far. I'm going to see if I can get it up a little bit more. But they only take like 10 minutes, which is awesome. But it's so funny, man. Somehow I'm getting in these amazing draft groups, like these great pods. And every time I show Ben a lineup, he shows me the draft that he's just been in. And it's like this same guy takes 4 quarterbacks in the first 4 rounds. So Ben just can't even draft a quarterback. Like he's just getting screwed by the other people. So what'll happen is he'll probably end up advancing through the first round in a lot of these because, you know, like the competition's terrible. But then once you get into the second round, he has a totally unviable lineup. So that's I love doing it. But the only thing that sucks about best ball, same thing for the regular season, although I'm going to do it and I'm probably going to start in April, is, and you know this, is that if you're in the wrong type of draft where you just have morons, and I won't even call them moron. I'll say people that don't have any clue what they're doing, right? They're just uneducated as far as the best ball format goes and what you can win with. It doesn't just screw their teams up, but it's the guy that when you have Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and Jonnu Smith, he grabs Tua Tagovailoa 3 rounds early.
Yeah, or I mean, the other part of this too is that you also have some of those like the underdog. I forget what they call them, the daily drafts, where you feel like you have a good team. They get to the actual standings at the end of the results. Like, how did somebody draft the 5 best players all on one team because they're just all idiots in their draft?
Yeah, idiots but they're so fun. I don't care one way or another. They are so fun. And I will continue to do them. Hey, how about that? And by the way, we're going to get into this right now, go over everything. I think you guys are going to be pretty intrigued by what some of these builds look like for sure. Einsteinium, do you like the under in this Texans-Chiefs game? Yeah, I sprinkled on it at 41.5. I think that's maybe 42.5. I'd have to look. I don't hate it. Cool. QK Shade said, smashed another night on Portfolio EV. Hell yeah, man. Those messages are becoming far more abundant. It's first week is 100% free, guys. You want to dive in. Look down there. Get OddsShopper Portfolio EV. It should say in the description, it should say first week is free. But your first week is 100% free, and you can make every bet from your phone. I haven't placed a bet from my desktop in over a year, I think. I don't do it. something with like my location that gets messed up for betting on these sports books, but not DFS. But we have the mass entry tool for the phone, for my phone. I just have notifications set every 5 minutes. I hammer everything I get every day, no matter where I am, and we profit. I had a nice day yesterday too, QK Shade. And man, if there's anything else when you have a bad DFS day to go, oh, nice, I broke even, or I even had a nice profit, even though I lost in DFS. Portfolio EV, baby. Try it for a week. Get as much volume down as you can every day. Get on as many sports books as you can. And mind you, if you're going to sign up on sports books, use our link joins, because for each one of those, you're going to get a free month of core DFS, which is a $100 value. Can't say much more about it, Greg. Double dip, triple dip with all this stuff. Get free access, start making money, and hopefully you'll stick with us. I think you will.
Yeah, definitely. And like Lofty said, first 7 days free. So go check it out. Links down below in the YouTube description box.
Peter said I have 100 bets in already. Damn it, dude. I wish I had. What books are you on, man? Because I have a decent amount, but I don't have close to 100. I have 30 bets down so far, which isn't bad, but that's. Are you have like Hard Rock where you are too, or ESPN Bet or something like that? Just DK? You know, the real move, Greg, is to just sleep during the day and stay awake at night. So we should do.
Why ever sleep? Just
right? Why ever?
Just set an alarm every 20 minutes or something.
I told you, sometimes when I would wake up to like take a piss or something, or my daughter, like my 1-year-old, when she was young, when she'd cry in the middle of the night, go soothe her or whatever, you look and you pull it up and there's like 50 up there at 3 a.m. That's what I got to do. See, QK Shade said it. Yes, the cheat codes play some for sure, dude. Get them at 3 a.m. You wake up, you got to take a piss. Fortunately, I sleep through the night still. I'm not old enough yet to where I'm actually like waking up twice a night to piss, but it's usually the kid. Yeah. Mass entry is in the middle of the night, 100%, dude. Anyway, let's see. This is how we do it. Anyway, check it out. Link down there for Portfolio EV. First week is free. And like I said, sign up with any sportsbook partner. Follow those 4 steps. You'll see that up there as well. If you're getting on as many books as possible, for each one, you're going to get a free month of our core package for DFS. Get the sims, get the single lineup sim, and all of that stuff. But you got to follow those steps, got to use those links, and then hit us up. We got you, baby. All right, let's go. So pull it up, Jacob. Let's make it happen. All right, Greg, here's what we do. As always, this is our 20th week doing it, 20th time doing it this season?
Something like that. Who could count that high, though?
I can't. It's 20. We're going to...
Not me.
We're going to look at all of this through the lens of, on the surface, what do the builds look like? What do our flex spots look like? What do our stacks look like? Because mind you, we only have 4 games. These are going to look a whole lot different than when we had 11 game slate. And then we can get into exposures. So let me maximize this screen here and see what we've got. Any rough assumptions before we get into exposures? I enjoy asking you this because I want to see if there's anything you're looking at that I'm missing.
So first thing that stands out here is that we've got a lineup right at the top. It's a QB +4. There's also an Eagles +4. Those are the only 2, but still a couple of our top 5 lineups are QB +4 lineups. So I'm kind of interested to see how heavily it is that we're stacking this weekend, but also fairly spread out. There's a Detroit, or a few Detroits, few Philly, KC. It's not like there's one team that's the primary stack. So, you never know if that's just what the top 10 lineups are, and that's maybe not indicative of all of them, but at least it looks like our stack exposure is going to be pretty spread out.
Jacob, give me like a nice little slow scroll here for a second. I don't see any Lamar. There's one. There's a Stroud. All right, pop it back up to the top. Is there a lot of 2 tight end? There has to be, right? On a site like this? Yeah.
Yeah.
There has to be. The dual tight end, just Ben and I even built lineups on Tuesday. We got to that. You and I did some of that on Wednesday with the single lineup sim builder tournament show. You're going to get a lot of that. So let's go to quarterbacks. Take a look at exposures. It's actually
pretty spread out.
Yeah, it's actually really spread out. The only thing that surprises me is the Lamar Jackson stuff. Do we have Zay Flowers in? I still don't think he's going to play. I know we differed on that, but I'm still very, very.
Yeah, we have him projected, not projected well. It looks like we have him expected to play like limited work. We have him for 12 fantasy points.
Do you not think, though, that if he ends up being out, we end up getting more Lamar Jackson because of those price points on Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Rashad Bateman? They're all cheap.
Yeah, we got Bateman is $4,900. Andrews $4,500. Likely is $3,500. So yeah, it would make those Raven stacks much more viable. Right now, there's a couple of issues with it. First off, it's expensive with Lamar. And the other part, too, is with Zay Flowers in, but us projecting him to be limited, it makes him not look great and pretty much none of the other pass catchers. So I do agree with you. Zay Flowers, if he is officially ruled out or we find out he's just going to be a decoy, then yeah, Lamar Jackson and Raven stacks become a little bit easier to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing, too, we had a question from Einsteinium. What's up, brother? Any viability? I mentioned you to my buddies the other day, not by name, but when people were talking about the Eagles fan, Greg.
I was thinking about that too, because it was either this show or Wednesday last week, Ryan Steinman brought up that he was going to be going to the Eagles game, but he was nervous to be wearing another team's gear. And we were telling him like, it's overblown. It's something that doesn't really happen. I was laughing so hard when the biggest story this week was an Eagles fan losing his job and that he was harassing the lady and the video came out and whatnot. So, at the end of it's not like she got, I know that what Einstein was actually more nervous about, it wasn't the words as much as like, is somebody's going to, sucker punch him or something like that. So it wasn't anything like that, but still it was ironic that this is the biggest NFL story during the week.
Was great. Yeah. Einsteinium goes, hey, I had a great time. I got a good piece of video. Like, oh, interesting. No, he said that everyone treated him great. Like, and I assume it was like friendly jawing back and forth, which is good. But I was talking to some buddies with that the other day, just in the sense of like, you only hear about the bad stuff, not like the probably other 5,000 Packers fans that were there and nothing happened to them, so it's a statistics game, but I'm glad you had a good time, Einstein. He asked, Big Rob said, if Packers win, it might've been different. Yeah. I mean, that's well, no, it might've been different if you're a Packers fan and you start talking shit, then yeah, but don't do it. Just don't do it. Anyway.
Yeah. So the one thing I did find funny about the Twitter stuff is the people who are defending the guy who got fired was yelling at the lady or whatever. So to me, like whatever the consequences are or whatever, that's one thing. If you think it's too harsh, I don't understand defending the guy. I mean, like this guy is in the right either though. Those are the people that confuse me online.
Of course. You'll never hear me getting behind like public doxing campaigns and stuff like that, though. The whole job loss thing, but you bring shit upon yourself, man. It is what it is. But yeah, you're never going to have me like championing doxing people. Guy's a moron, though. Anyway, his question was, I think this is a good one, and we can actually look to see if you want to go to stack exposures. Before you do, actually, hold on. We have 12% Allen, and we have basically no Lamar. Go to stack exposures because Einsteinium's asking if running Lamar or Allen naked is viable. My answer to that on the surface, Greg, is, I mean, sure, but also their attachments as pass catchers are so cheap and they're expensive quarterbacks. It almost seems counterintuitive to do that when like you're going to have to play value anyway. So would it not make more sense, right? To even if it's like a +1, if it's just a skinny stack, if you have to find value somewhere, I'd probably try and tether at least one of them to the quarterback when you're getting like a Likely with a 3,500 or a Shakir at, what is he, 5K or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah. And this is a slate too, where a lot of the quarterbacks, as I've kind of thought about the slate and gone through it, we have a lot of viable, cheap wide receivers, but it's a lot of these teams do spread the ball out a decent amount, like the Bills offense, the Chiefs offense, the Lions offense, so they don't really have cheap pass catchers there. The Eagles offense, the Ravens offense, a lot of these teams spread it out. So I do think the easiest way to correlate your lineups and create upside is going to be with some of those heavier stacks this week, just because it's going to be so hard to hit on individual pieces from all of these offenses. I would rather just try to find the spot where it's like, oh, this team scores 40 points this week and everybody ate.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Big Rob said, would you do Shakir or Samuel for the savings? Honestly, man, to me, it's still Shakir. I know Curtis Samuel is discounted, so I'm not saying that he's not viable, but I think you're chasing pretty heavy in a spot like that, right? I mean, this is a guy who had 8 targets in week 18. Don't get excited about that. It's actually not a particularly good thing, considering that a lot of the other starters didn't even really play all that much, right? So Samuel played a decent amount, but he only played 39% of snaps last week. You know, he's not going to run routes on more than 50% of dropbacks. So do I hate it? No, I think there's better value. I think he also ran particularly hot last week, and Shakir's 5K flat. To me, that's where I actually think he's the best value on Buffalo, even though he's the most expensive pass catcher.
I'm checking to see if this has moved. Last I looked, Curtis Samuel's receptions prop was 1.5 and heavily juiced towards the under.
Really? Under on a 1.5. Okay.
Yeah.
I have no issues. I have no argument against that. No. It was just,
yeah.
He had 3 receptions.
Curtis Samuel to me is a guy who, if he showed up in a lineup or two, okay, we even project for 3 fantasy points. So if he was in a lineup, it's not the end of the world, but Shakir is going to be an actual priority play for me.
Agreed. And if you wanted to play the kind of recency game, Diami Brown's going to be out there, probably for twice as many snaps in another high scoring game. There's some value that we'll talk about. But yeah, Jaden Daniels getting a bunch of double stacks. Josh Allen, no surprise, a bunch of double stacks. And then Patrick Mahomes, if you look at Mahomes here, some of the attachments are just incredibly cheap. They're more than a touchdown home favorite. They don't really have a great running game right now. Pacheco and Kareem Hunt are fine, and I'm not convinced Pacheco is even 100% healthy. You look at some of these. Travis Kelce is 5K flat, dude. Xavier Worthy's 5,400. Hopkins, does he start to see an expanded role now that they're into the postseason? I could see that. And then Hollywood Brown had 15 targets in the 2 games he played before resting in week 18. I mean, there are some options here for Kansas City, and none of them are expensive at all. This is such an easier slate to build than it was last week. I don't know if I actually like that.
Yeah, so the thing that's hardest is kind of what I was referring to before, where a team like the Chiefs, for instance, I think you can make a very strong case there is upside in all of those guys you just mentioned. Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, Travis Kelce as well. It's really hard to know which guy is going to be the guy this weekend, though. It is super, super hard to know.
Same thing for Buffalo. Same thing for Baltimore. Right? I don't know. It feels like it's this. I feel like you have a lot of teams. Kansas City, Washington, to some extent, outside of McLaurin. Could be Eckler, could be Olamide Zaccheaus, it could be Diami Brown, it could be Zach Ertz. Philly, but only because do they just run the ball 50 times, or does Jalen Hurts open it up? The Rams are the most heavily concentrated team. They just have a tough matchup.
Yeah, Rams concentrated, and then Lions. It definitely scares me we're getting to as much of Jared Goff and Lions stacks because I don't know what Montgomery's workload is going to be. I don't know how that's going to impact Jahmyr Gibbs. And then also you got, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Laporta's fairly cheap, but these Lions guys, if you miss on the right, on the guy you select, you're probably killing a lineup because of Jahmyr Gibbs being $7,700 and Amon-Ra St. Brown being $7,200. So while I'll be getting exposure to these guys for sure, I'm going to feel more comfortable paying up for Nakua or paying up for Barkley.
It's a fair point. Because if you, let's say you miss on Dalton Kincaid or Khalil Shakir, or you miss on Zach Ertz or Isaiah Likely or even Mark Andrews to some extent, or Rashad Bateman, you're not dead. You're not dead. If you miss on Gibbs and he ends, it's tough though. Like, what would you consider a miss? Because if Gibbs finishes with 10, that's no good. If he has 18, you're probably still live.
So it's going to be relative to what the other pay-up options score, which
Sure.
kind of makes it tricky.
Not if he has 10, though. That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
Not if he has 10.
He's almost certainly going to have to score a touchdown. And if Barkley or Henry were to be significantly better than him. And the other thing, too, is I think this is going to change, but who knows? Maybe it isn't because it hasn't changed since Wednesday. We've got Jahmyr Gibbs projected for 60% ownership. Barkley right around 40%, which, 40% is still a healthy number. It's not 60 though. And then Henry's at 15. If that's to actually hold by the time of tomorrow afternoon, I'll definitely be trying to get away from some of this Lions chalk.
Yeah. Can you go to projections real quick, Jacob? And then go to running back. And then sort by owner, not exposure, but just sort by ownership. Okay. So let's see. Because you talked about it a bit. Gibbs. Yeah, I mean, wow. Barkley, Kyren. Shit, if Derrick Henry really comes in as the 5th highest owned running back, look at Mixon and Cook too. I know it's a really tough matchup. They're big road dogs, but that's also another spot that might be worth entertaining. I had mentioned last week there's a couple guys playing in the postseason that are just going to play a ton of snaps. And, Mixon is one of those guys. He'll still be involved in the passing game. He's questionable, so pay attention to that. But he had 25 carries last week, 25 carries, and 27 total looks. I do kind of hate this game script for him because not only is it a tough matchup, but Kansas City can just chew up clock and do that, kind of surgical drive downfield with 5, 6, 7 yard plays. But he's there. And then James Cook is in a tough matchup. What do you make of a guy like Cook at 11% ownership on a 4-game slate? Tough matchup on the ground, but he is good and he's explosive. I don't know how much I love it, but we got to talk about some of these guys.
Yeah. So James Cook is probably going to be somebody who I'm not going to be getting to a lot of he's just priced kind of in a no man's land space where I would also, if I'm going in that price range, Kyren Williams to me is a much stronger option than James Cook. But I either like going really cheap at running back or like some of the pay up guys. Saquon Barkley in particular, the current ownership, is the one who stands out to me the most. But some of these guys like James Cook, Joe Mixon, I don't think I'm going to be getting to a ton of. And then if I want to go really cheap, we talked about this on Wednesday. It's a really good game script for Austin Eckler to be getting potentially 5, 6, 7 targets.
No doubt.
David Montgomery as well. I want a little bit more information here, but if Jahmyr Gibbs is actually going to be 60% owned and David Montgomery plays, I think that's a really good leverage option because we saw throughout the season that it was a back and forth. It's not like Jahmyr Gibbs was always the workhorse over David Montgomery. And now because Montgomery missed a few games, we're just kind of expecting Gibbs is going to continue that same workload that he had before. At least that's how he's projected. So I like Montgomery and Eckler for cheap for different reasons.
Me too. Montgomery also super cheap on FanDuel as well. So, kind of plug and play status there. But yeah, the Eckler 7% right now, I think he looks pretty good. And if they're playing from behind, you may see a lot more work out of him. I like him more than I like Brian Robinson. I can tell you that much. It's not particularly close for me, but yeah, the fact that I think eventually this balances out with Montgomery. Montgomery's not even on the injury report anymore, right? He has no injury designation. So there's nobody behind Saquon Barkley other than Kenny Gainwell, and Gainwell might get 2 touches in this game. There's nobody, granted, much tougher spot. They are road dogs, touchdown, 6-point road dogs. Nobody behind Kyren Williams. Derrick Henry's a trickier one because when you get Justice Hill back, which he did return last game, that's trickier, right? Like Justice Hill still played 40% of the snaps last week. Derrick Henry was being used a lot more frequently. You're talking 70+% of snaps when Justice Hill missed, almost 3 games. Derrick Henry, depending on the game script, is either going to be fantastic. Things can turn for Derrick Henry, though, on a dime. And that's always my concern, Greg. Like, that's not the case with Barkley, even if they're playing from behind. It's not the case with Kyron. It's not even the case with Gibbs, despite sharing that workload with Montgomery. Derrick Henry, believe it or not, despite his price point, despite how good he is the one guy that can get phased out pretty easily in the event that they were go down early. I'm not saying they go away from him entirely, but it'd be tough to pay off 8K if that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I always have that concern with Derrick Henry, especially when they're playing elite teams, just because he can get phased out of the game, which seems crazy when Derrick Henry's going well, because when Derrick Henry's going well after a game like last, we'd be like, oh my God, this guy is unstoppable. But then all of a sudden you watch a Ravens game and they're down by a touchdown the late going, and it's Justice Hill on the field getting targeted every other play. So that's definitely the main reason why Barkley is my overall preferred spend up option. I feel better about his workload and his involvement in the passing game than Derrick Henry. And at least as of right now, I'm just not comfortable with the ownership on Jahmyr Gibbs.
I hear you. It's just always, it's a give and take with him. He can go nuts. Like if it's a favorable game script, it's probably because Derrick Henry is playing very well. The only time that happened where he didn't was the Giants game where Lamar threw like 5 touchdowns. But let's take a look at exposures. Go to running backs here. Okay, a lot of Barkley, a lot of Montgomery, not a ton of Henry or Cook or Mixon. I like that we're getting 16% Eckler. We're like 2x the field right now on Eckler. I like that quite a bit. I think it's a pretty nice spot. No problems with Kyron. That dude's going to play the entire game. Only reason he didn't last week was because it was a blowout and Ronnie Rivers came in the final drive or whatever. But I like all that. Do you have any interest in getting to the Chiefs backfield? Because it's muddy right now.
No, for a handful of reasons. First, I have no clue what to make of Pacheco's workload compared to Hunt's workload. It doesn't even seem like Andy Reid knows based on some of his comments. He was like, we're going to keep doing what it is we've been doing this year, but it's like Kareem Hunt wasn't even on the team earlier in the year. So it's kind of hard to really know what to make of what that backfield is going to be for the Chiefs. And then on top of it, too, it's not like a wide receiver for the Chiefs where, while we're not totally sure whether it's going to be Hollywood Brown or whether it's going to be Xavier Worthy as the guy who's leading in targets as a cheap wide receiver, they are cheaper than what the running backs are. And there's less opportunity cost to me because at running back, there are so many really strong options that are, to me, kind of like infallible to an extent, like a Saquon Barkley, where at wide receiver, there are a lot of cheap wideouts who are kind of interchangeable. Like, I think it's pretty unlikely you would look back on your slate at wide receiver and you would feel bad about spreading your exposures around at the wide receiver position. At running back, though, I think you could really feel bad if you're like, oh, I only played, like 20% of Barkley because I felt I needed to get 15% of Hunt and 15% of Pacheco. I just think there's so many of these guys are going to have dud games at running back.
That's a good way to look at it. So would you say then, like, all right, you're talking, you got $5K left. Let's say $5,000. It's actually a perfect salary. You'd prefer some of these pass catchers in that price range over Kareem Hunt, Justice Hill, Ty Johnson, those type of guys?
Yeah, the secondary running backs are the guys who are just really in heavy splits like Hunt and Pacheco. Robinson versus Eckler, even though it is a split backfield, they each have defined roles where Brian Robinson is usually the guy who plays more when they're leading. Eckler plays more when they're playing from behind, which is what the spread indicates is going to be happening this week. So, yeah, some of these cheap running backs, it's just not where I want to be saving salary outside of taking some shots on Eckler or David Montgomery because of the leverage he gives you off of Jahmyr Gibbs, which the Sims are giving us a lot of.
All right, I'm with you. I don't hate Ty Johnson's involvement in the offense at all. I think there will be better times to play him, though. I don't think it's this slate. Same thing with Justice Hill. I think there's going to be, assuming that these guys are even still here next week. But what I'm talking about is just having more short, abbreviated slates are going to open things up for those type of guys. But you look at this, it's a 4-game slate. That's it. Only 8 teams, but there's no shortage of value at wide receiver. Like Jacob, if you go to wide receiver here, you have, Puka, sure, especially with the precipitous decline of Cooper Kupp, St. Brown, Shakir, Devontae, Terry McLaurin, like that, Hollywood Brown. I like the only one that I would prefer more of right now, and can you scroll down a little bit, Jacob, is AJ Brown at 16%. Like I think this could be a significant game for AJ Brown in a spot like this. This is also going to change if Zay Flowers gets ruled out. He's still not practicing. If he gets ruled out, you're going to see a lot more Bateman. Tell you that. You're going to see a lot more Bateman, and then a tight end, a lot more likely in Mark Andrews.
Yeah, so that would also make it, honestly, if Zay Flowers does get ruled out, it would make it even easier to spend up at running back, I think. We would just be taking a wide receiver out of the mix. We get a couple of more cheap wideouts or cheap pass catchers. We include the tight ends to consider. So that would probably direct me to even more of Barkley than I'm already planning on getting to right now. And what do we? Yeah, we got 7% of Zay Flowers right now, so not a significant amount or anything.
How about the fact that they picked up Einstein? They picked up Deontay Johnson again.
They must hate him so much.
So everybody must at this point. It's crazy. It's nuts. Let me read this comment from Brian. I haven't even read it yet, but it seems interesting. Let's see if I'm making a mistake or not. Brian says, all season I hear volume is key at the running back position. We know Barkley, Gibbs, and Henry will get that volume. Of the 3, I'd fade Gibbs more so than the others. Monty back, and we know how that plays out. Yeah, I mean, I
don't even think Jahmyr Gibbs is a lock to get a ton of volume.
Well, you don't think he's a lock to get a lot? What constitutes a ton of volume?
Like 25 plus touches.
25 plus touches?
Like, to me, that's a near lock for Barkley and Henry.
I don't think it's a lock for Henry at all. Henry's game.
I feel pretty good that he. I feel pretty good that he will, but like you look at the regular season for Jahmyr Gibbs, he had far more games with less than 20 touches than over 20 touches.
Oh, I hear you. I just think, 25 is big. Like if you could tell me in this spot that Jahmyr Gibbs was getting 20 touches, I'd be all over it. Like same thing with the Devon Achane. If you're like, oh yeah, 14 carries and 6 targets, no problem. Sign me up. Because he's just so good as a pass catcher. They scheme him open so well. He's so good after the catch. Yeah, should he be a little bit cheaper? Probably. The funny thing, though, this is basically the same price he was in week 15 when David Montgomery was healthy.
So another thing, too, I'm looking through this. How many games this year would you guess that Gibbs had 20 plus rushing attempts plus targets?
Plus?
Yeah. So
4?
It was 6 in total for the entire season. And if I'm not mistaken, Montgomery was out for 4 of those games.
Right. But he averages 10 yards per reception and 5.5 yards per attempt rushing. So I'm just saying, like, touches aren't all equal.
For sure. He also hasn't had more than, he's had more than 5 targets twice since week 2. And those were also games that Montgomery was out. I just think his workload is much flimsier than Henry's and Barkley's.
Yeah. If I told you could get 25 rushing attempts for Henry or 20 total touches from Gibbs, what would you take?
Well, I also don't think Gibbs is that likely to get to 20 touches. I shouldn't say not likely, but it's not what I expect. It's also relative to ownership because we're talking about Gibbs at a fourth of the or Henry at a fourth of the ownership of Gibbs. So we're just talking projection Gibbs, but relative to ownership, Henry.
Okay. That's fair. It's a tricky situation with Montgomery back. But again, Jahmyr Gibbs was 7,500 with Montgomery healthy. So he's not actually that expensive. What were we looking at? Wide receivers? Right?
So for wide receivers, what's the specific question?
I said, what were we looking at before we veered off?
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. We were actually looking at the cheap running backs, but now we can move over to wide. I think we've exhausted running backs now.
Yeah, we were over at wide receiver. I mentioned A.J. Brown. Flowers being out is significant. Another thing, though, I don't really know how you're going to scroll to the top, Jacob. I don't know how you're going to get away from some of these Kansas City guys. Like Hollywood's 4,200, Worthy's 5,200. I'm just going to be getting to a decent amount of them. The only trouble you're going to have if you're someone that plays like 3 or 4 or 5 lineups is you're without question going to be leaving a lot of guys out of lineups that look really good. Like, I'm not saying you go, oh man, I got to rework this. I don't have Hollywood Brown, or I can't play this. I don't have Jamison Williams, but man, all these guys are capable of going nuts. This is some of the best low tier and mid-range value that we've had in a long time. Even just the guys on the screen, Shakir's $5K, Devonta Smith is 5,600, Hollywood Brown's 42, McLaurin 63, Jamison 61, Worthy 52. DraftKings, without question, priced all of these guys down this week. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, it's like you were saying at the top, it is not hard to build lineups on DraftKings this week. There are a lot of cheap wide receivers with ceiling. One thing that I think is going to, we are getting to a ton of the pay up wide receivers. I was going to say is I might end up shorting some of the expensive wide receivers because I want to prioritize paying up for guys like Barkley and Derrick Henry as of now relative to their prices and ownerships. So I thought that could potentially squeeze us out of guys like Puka Nacua and Amon-Ra St. Brown. But it looks like we're able to just play everybody. We've got lineups in here: Gibbs, Barkley, Nacua, Amon-Ra St. Brown. We've got, I assume, if we go back and look at the lineups, it seems like we have 3-4 studs in each lineup.
Let's check them out. I would assume we do. Gibbs, Nacua, St. Brown, Hollywood Brown. I see what I mean. You can do what you want. Barkley, Montgomery, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Xavier Worthy, Sam Laporta, Kincaid. What about Mahomes? Barkley, Gibbs, McLaurin, Khalil Shakir, Hollywood Brown, Kelsey. Yeah, like these are ridiculous. Josh Allen, Gibbs, Montgomery, Puka Nacua, A.J. Brown, Khalil Shakir, Dalton Schultz, Dalton Kincaid. There aren't many restrictions on what you're able to do at all.
No, you get 3 pay-up options per lineup, it looks like.
Yeah, but even the non-pay-up options. Like, okay, let's say what do we want to use as an example? What would you consider pay-up? Like above 6K?
I was thinking the 7K guys, because it seems like we have 3 7K plus guys in every lineup.
Like if you took Jahmyr Gibbs, Puka Nacua, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, so that top lineup, you still have Hollywood Brown, David Montgomery. That's a crazy one. Both Detroit running backs. We've seen it work. Yeah, you can kind of do what you want. What do you think's the best way, and just based on what the Sims is showing us and your kind of intuition going into this slate, the best way to maybe do things a little bit differently on a slate where you don't have many limitations?
Yeah, Montgomery's a leverage option over Jahmyr Gibbs. Can you go back to exposures for a second, Jacob? Sort by leverage. I just want to see who it is that we're most underweight to and overweight to. All right, so some guys that we are overweight to: Devonta Smith, overweight to Nico Collins, overweight to Puka Nacua, Hollywood Brown. Who are most underweight to? Most underweight to right now. Just click it one more time. Yeah, most underweight to Zacchaeus, Zay Flowers, Xavier Worthy, Diami Brown. All right, there's nothing like crazy that shows up here.
No.
I mean, I don't know what to make of Cooper Kupp. I'm gonna be super. I don't think I could play Cooper Kupp heavy again.
After
I'm
last
gonna be
week,
if he has a big game at $5,400 and he's 5%, and we're all gonna feel like morons. None of us are playing him.
I know it's tough right now. I said it a million times. There's 4 active tight ends on the Rams, and they all had not only a target but a reception before he had a target. That is. Imagine thinking that was the case earlier in the season. It's inexplicable at this point. I don't get it. Unless
there was best ball redrafts when Puka Nacua got hurt after week 1, where people were taking Cooper Kupp first overall.
Is that right?
Yeah, and it didn't even seem unreasonable at the time.
Yeah, because Nacua hit the IR. And the funny thing is he only missed a month, came back after not practicing, and then had that huge game against the Vikings. You and I had talked about what to do with that on the show. He came back after missing 4 games, didn't even practice. Yeah. Yep. Nick Tarantino. Sure, we can look at tight ends. Let's do it. Go over to the tight end position. And for those of you guys that jumped in late, just a reminder, Portfolio EV, your first week is free. We put links to everything in the description. Trying to make some additional money, take your family on vacation. You want to buoy those DFS losses on bad downswings, whatever you want to do. You want to tuck it away, build up a little bit of a nest egg with the profits you build from Portfolio EV using this approach, betting everything from your phone if you want, taking less than 30 minutes a day to get 100 plus bets in, just grind out the market, beat the inefficiencies. Do it. 7-day free trial, man, for any new users. Link down there. And while you're at it, get a free month of core Stokastic Sims packages because you're going to need to be on as many sports books as possible. Both links. Join any sportsbook. Get Stokastic Sims free. Follow those 4 simple steps with that link. Man, be swimming in it. Make good decisions around here. Make more money. All right. Tight end, Laporta, Schultz, Kelsey. I think this will change dramatically if and when Zay Flowers gets ruled out. But the only one, I thought we'd have more Zach Ertz.
To an extent, I was expecting tight end to be more spread out just because of how many good options there are. So it's not to say that I thought Zach Ertz would be the guy at the position. I just didn't think there was going to be anybody like Laporta showing up in 60% of lineups. And I thought it was going to be a lot of guys we had in 20 to 30% of lineups. But instead, we got to 40% of Dalton Schultz. We had 63% of Sam Laporta. Then you get Kelsey, Kincaid. They're each in about 30% of lineups. Goddard, 22. I thought we'd have less of guys like Laporta and Schultz, and then an extra 30 to 40% exposure to spread out to guys like Zach Ertz, Mark Andrews, Tyler Higbee. Tyler Higbee has to, maybe people are really concerned about the injury. He had, 5 targets in the first quarter of last week's game?
He had 5 for 58 in the first 7, 8, 9 minutes of the game or whatever it was. Yeah.
If he's healthy, which it seems, we know he's going to play, but if we find out that he's not actually going to be super limited in any kind of way, I am going to definitely want to play Tyler Higbee at 3,400.
Sure. Mind you, that's also a true outlier performance. It's not like you're just going to, Tyler Higbee's going to take over as the number 1 pass catcher. But yeah, I still like it.
Yeah.
He had 5 targets on 12 snaps.
Yeah. Still $3,400 for a guy who's right now 5% owned, considering we know what his workload could be after what it was last week.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, would you like him more than Dalton Schultz?
Yeah. With Dalton Schultz being 5x as popular at more or less the same price tag, $100 differing them, then yeah, Tyler Higbee to me would be a really good pivot off of Schultz.
What do you make of Kincaid? I know he $3,700. I suppose it just makes sense, but fewer players have been more disappointing this season than Dalton Kincaid. I mean, really, fewer guys have been as disappointing as Dalton Kincaid. Even in the games where he sees decent targets, he's still just for out of curiosity's sake, how many games do you think he's had double-digit fantasy DraftKings points this year?
2?
3 times. How many times do you think he's had 15 plus?
That might be 0.
0. Isn't that nuts? The guy
Yeah,
doesn't have a single game with more than 13.
Season league and best ball, the only tight ends that were getting drafted ahead of him, by the way, another disappointing year, Sam Laporta. If I remember correctly, the only guys in best ball and season long leagues that were getting drafted ahead of Dalton Kincaid at tight end, Sam Laporta and Travis Kelce. I think that was it.
Sam Laporta, Kelce. Was Andrews going behind him?
Yeah.
No.
Andrews a little bit after him.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez. And then Pitts was after him too, I believe.
Yeah, Pitts was relatively late in drafts.
That's wild. All you needed to do was draft Brock Bowers.
Dick to go. Hilarious when we have to call people by their YouTube handles. Trey McBride. He's right. I forgot about Trey McBride. Trey McBride absolutely went ahead of him.
Yeah, McBride's the man. Is it Dick to go or Dick Togo?
That has to be Dick to go.
What is he starting up like a fast food restaurant?
Yeah, it's the new app. You just order it.
Yeah.
You select your preferences. I like a little bit of glitter, shaved, unshaved, circumcised, uncircumcised. Boom, place order. It tells you it'll be there in 15 to 20 minutes.
Nice.
Arrives in a box.
Do you have the number?
Yeah, 1-800-DICK to go.
That's too many numbers. You're one over.
No, because it's with the 2.
Solid. Light bulb went on for you there. All right. Yeah, when you said the Ertz thing, that you didn't think he should be the guy, I didn't either. What I meant was I didn't expect to have 40% Schultz and 3% Ertz. I didn't expect to have 63% Laporta and 1% Andrews.
Yeah.
Again, if Zay Flowers is out, who benefits the most? Yes, Andrews, but also $3,500 Isaiah Likely. I mean, I just think the price point on Isaiah Likely, seeing that last week they did not need to throw the ball a lot, Isaiah Likely, he might be my favorite tight end if Zay Flowers sits. Played 80% of snaps last week. Okay, 80%. He was lining up everywhere, including outside. So they're not just using him in line. He's not like a traditional tight end by any metric. You look at routes run. They were running the football, so it didn't matter. He ran 19 routes, same as Andrews and Bateman, essentially. So he's just going to be out there. Like Aguilar wasn't running. Anthony Miller. Who else? Tylan Wallace. He just becomes one of the top pass catching options. And I'm not convinced that you're going to be able to take the same game script that you did last week against the lifeless Pittsburgh team, particularly on offense. And it's not like there's no way it's a carbon copy of last week. I don't know how you can do that.
Yeah, I don't know the likelihood to be my favorite tight end, but I would definitely like him a very good amount for this slate. Him at 3,500, Tyler Higbee at 3,400. I would definitely want my tight end exposure smoothed over a little bit, and not even because I dislike Sam Laporta or Dalton Schultz, just because I like so many of these other tight ends too.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
But what I mean is I would still prefer to have, I won't say prefer, but I'd still be very comfortable having Likely as one of my highest exposed tight ends if Flowers sits.
For sure. I wouldn't have an issue with that either.
I think we've covered it, huh? Go to defense. Let me go to defense real quick, Jacob. Then we'll bounce. I want to see if it's throwing us like all right. I had a sneaky suspicion we'd have a lot of Texans in there, but you and I were fine with that the other day, right? So doesn't really matter. Here's a question for you. We can close with this. By the way, follow Greg at Ehrenberg DFS, me at Lafayette_D. You want to check out anything, rock the Stokastic avatar to get free stuff. The calendar year flip. Get a lot of awesome stuff, like $500 subs worth, $200 sub just for winning your first time. The Hall of Fame page is down there. You can download the app or the avatar, use it wherever it is you play. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. Boom. Doesn't matter if it's a 10-cent entry. Tweet us your wins with the screenshot as long as you're rocking the avatar to Stokastic HOF on Twitter, and we got you. Get bronze, silver, gold. Get the beautiful ring in the custom display case. It spins. It's sweet. With any 20K plus win, if you're not rocking the avatar, do it. But Greg, this may seem like a question that means nothing, but I don't think that's true. If there's a 4-game slate and you happen to run this and you're getting like 70% of a defense and 20% of another, or like 60 and 25, and 80% of your total exposure to defense is between two teams, when kind of all of them don't look that good, are you okay with that? Or would you look to try and just smooth it out? Because there's so much variance at this position, so much unpredictability. Do you want all of your lineups being concentrated around one or two defenses?
No, and I assume that by the time we get all of the updates and everything's finalized tomorrow afternoon, I probably won't have more than, without even making adjustments, I probably won't get more than 25 to 30% of any one defense anyway, just with the way it kind of balances itself out with more value plays becoming available and ownership being a little more efficient and whatnot. So I don't want to have more than 50% of any one defense. I also don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think that's what the sim is going to give us by the time everything's set tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah. It should. It should. Rosso Music. Listen, whenever you win those, brothers, send them our way. Sometimes I'm willing to make exceptions. I know you. You've been supporting us for a while. Keep that in mind. I can't guarantee anything, but always willing to look over some contests, particularly, some that are just, aesthetically pleasing, if you know what I mean. Anyway, appreciate you guys. Shout out to Jacob for producing this one. Greg, we'll be back Saturday, right? Tomorrow we got tomorrow. Kicking it off. Ben and I will be here. Are you doing it with Eric for Live Before Live?
So tomorrow it's going to be deep dive, you and Ben for an hour, and then Eric and I on Live Before Lock for an hour right after that. So if I remember correctly, games 4:30 is when the first game starts. I'm having a brain for whether it's 4 or 4:30. I think it's 4:30. So you and Ben on the deep dive, 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. Then Eric and I Live Before Lock, 3:30 to 4:30 Eastern time, Saturday this week instead of Sunday.
Yeah, we'll see you guys. Clear the schedule, 4:30 or 2:30 tomorrow Eastern time. If we don't see you, have a great weekend. Otherwise, we'll catch you here tomorrow afternoon. Peace.